Thank you, George, for that introduction. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Jeffrey Meyer. I am the founder of Union First. We are a union employee assistance program. Some of you are probably wondering, well, what does that mean? Union First is an employee assistance program that provides job protection and behavioral health services to union members and their immediate family members. Now, we all know that the railroads have their own EAP, right? They have their own in-house EAP. We work for you. We work on the union side of the bargaining table. We only work for union members. Union First represents a little over 300,000 union members nationwide. We help union members every day, all day. That's what we do. We don't work for management at all at any level. We've been working with BMW ED now for the last 2.5 years, and we've had some really good success. And we have literally put dozens and dozens of union members through our program, gotten them through our program, and have returned them to work. In that respect, we have a 100% success rate. People finish our program and go back to the job. And so we take a lot of pride in that. And so today, I want to just talk to you at a 10,000 foot level about what Union First is, and then I want to walk you through how we handle a behavioral health crisis when we have a member who's in crisis. What we need to do that. I'm going to try to give you some tools today on how we can handle that so that we know what to do on a going forward basis. Now, some leaders in this room have worked with me and we've handled behavioral health crises together and we problem solve together. Some of them like Mark Samandi and George and Tom and Jake know what it's like to deal with a crisis, and we communicate to one another, right? And so I also want to let you know that outside on our table we have brochures that you can take back to your members, and I have business cards. I would ideally love for all of you to grab my business card so that you have my cell number on you, so that when you have an issue with the member, you can call me directly. You can also always call the 1-800 number that's available 24/7. So today I'm going to talk about exactly how we handle behavioral health crisis when a member is in need, okay? And you have a responsibility as a leader to fairly represent that member when they have a crisis. And so communication is the key. Churchill once said, the difference between mere management and leadership is communication. And communication is really vital, whether it's a text message or a phone call, that we're communicating when a crisis is happening in real time with a member. The thing I want to say from the jump is if a member is in distress, okay, and you see a member is clearly spiraling out of control and it's happening in the moment, the number one thing we always want to do is we want to get that member to an emergency room and get them to a hospital and get them admitted. Because we can always transfer them from the hospital and do what we call a bed-to-bed transfer. Transfer them from the hospital bed to a program directly. We can do that, but we want to get them stabilized and we want to get them safe. And many times the first step we have to do when they're spiraling out of control is get them to an emergency room. So your responsibility is to fairly represent a member of crisis. A big point of clarification, sometimes leaders and unions think that it's your job to get your member to like you. That's not your job. Your job is not to get your member to like you. Your job is to help your member. And sometimes that requires having some very tough conversations, having what we call sometimes a come to Jesus talk with a member when a member isn't listening to you or a member's in discipline and you have to tell them what's happening with them and what they need to do in order to protect their job. And so we've had some of those tough conversations with members, and those conversations have resulted in those members going into a treatment program and getting help and changing literally the trajectory of their life. So I want to talk about step one. Step one is really critical. And this is, how do we recognize the signs and symptoms when we know something's going on with a member? We see some things that are happening at the job that are like neon bright signs are saying there's a problem here that we need to get involved and we need to address. The longer that the problem exists, the greater chance that the member is going to end up in some form of discipline or out of service altogether, right? And so we need to pay attention to the signs and symptoms. So I want to go through what some of those signs and symptoms are with you today. So these are two big ones, all right? And we hear these a lot. One, unexplained absenteeism. Your member's out off the job a lot, and they're not able to explain that, and many times they're not able to back that up with doctor's paperwork. Exhausting all their time, using all their vacation time, using all their sick time, maybe even using all their FMLA time. Those are typically really key signs and symptoms that something is going on with the member that we need to figure out. It's probably a behavioral health issue. Outbursts on the job. A member is constantly acting out on the job. DUIs, or domestic abuse. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a phone call from a rep that says, my member just got a DUI, the railroad hasn't found out yet, what can you do to help? And then we walk the leader through the steps of what we can do to help. Poor concentration, deteriorating work habits. If you see that the member's performance in the job is not what it once used to be, there's a likely below the surface something happening behavioral health-wise that's going on that the member hasn't been able to communicate, or the member may feel shameful about, and they don't have the courage to want to communicate that with you. The big thing is when you do find a sign and symptom, we don't want you to diagnose the member. That's not your job. Your job is not to diagnose. Your job is not to confront. Your job is to be there as a facilitator and to lead and to represent the member. You know, so like, we never want you to say to a member things like, you have a real problem and we have to deal with it. We always want you to use different language than that. We always want you to say things like, I'm concerned about your job, I want to protect your job, I want to get you to our job protection team. So language and messaging is really important, because the last thing we want to do is say to a member, we need to get you help, and then that member dig their heels in and be just unwilling to accept any form of help because their ego has kicked in at that point. You know, so, you know, we also don't want you to use expressions like, are you on drugs? You know, again, do you have a problem? We don't want to use that messaging because it's gonna work in the opposite. It's gonna have the opposite impact and effect that we need. So again, we want to use language like, we need to establish job protection to you, we need to get you to our Union EAP, you need to have a conversation with our Union EAP, they'll be able to help you protect your job. And what do we do to do that, right? Like, what does that look like? So, I'll use BNSF as an example. BNSF has a process, right? And some of you may be chuckling, and let's be honest, they can be difficult to deal with, but we've been able to develop a rapport with them, okay? And they work with us. We send in the medical leave of absence form for BNSF, okay? That's the leave form that they use, which is essentially their form of the FMLA. They use that as their FMLA. So we have a doctor sign that medical leave of absence form for you so that you can go on leave. We get that in electronically, and we copy your union rep on that, so the union rep always knows what we're doing. That's the vehicle to put you on leave, and the similar processes with CP as well as other railroads. And so BNSF speaks their own language. They don't care about any form except for what they call their MLOA. They want that MLOA form in because that's when they see the doctor's signature, and that's when they're like, okay, we'll process this form, this member is on a medical leave. And so that's what we do with BNSF, and it works really well. The other thing that we do when we put a member on leave, when we're protecting their job, is that we file all the disability paperwork with the Hartford and with the RRB. And why is that important? That's important because what that essentially does is that gets you 80% of your pay while you're on leave. So while you're in treatment, the only thing that you have to worry about is getting well. We get you your benefits. We make sure that your members are being compensated while they're in treatment. They can take care of their families. And that's important, and we know that's important. And George has always made that a priority for us to take care of that. So that's something that we do, and we do it very efficiently. And we have a very good relationship with RRB, and we have a good relationship with the Hartford. So when there are problems that come up, we're able to quickly problem solve. So as leaders, we always want to take action, right? We always want to be in communication with us, with the EAP program. When a member comes to you with a problem, or you pick up that there's an issue that we need to be involved in, we want to quickly problem solve. And I do this a lot, most recently with Mark Samandi. Mark and I have been doing a lot of problem solving together, and we've been problem solving in difficult cases. So communication between myself and my team and the union rep is really important in that respect. Because what we want to do is, we want to move quickly so that we can protect the member's reputation and their job all at the same time. And the longer that takes, the harder it is. And the big thing is we need the member to be willing to be open-minded, to recognize that there is an issue here that we need to address. And because there's an issue, we need to get them into a program. So what do? We have the member, and some of the leaders in this room have gone through this process. We have the member call into our 1-800 number, and we do an over-the-phone assessment. On that assessment, our team asks a battery of questions, and we figure out, okay, does this member need an inpatient program? Do they need an an outpatient program, or do they just need to see a therapist? And a lot of times what comes back is because of what the member's going through, they need to have a higher level of care, which is an inpatient program. And so we put them on leave, we coordinate all of their transportation, and we take care of all the documentation with the health insurance company, so that's all taken care of. And like I said, we cover RRB and the Hartford. But literally the communication that happens between us and you as leaders is so vital, because you're looking out for that member, and then what we do is we essentially together walk the member through the process. So every form of communication that goes into the railroad, the union rep is on, and you will see it in real time as it's going in. You'll see the responses from the railroad to us many times as well. So you can see for yourself how we communicate with the railroad. Sometimes, at the end, when we have to return a member to work, the EAPs, we have to go through their process of returning the member to work. They can be a little bit difficult, but we get involved and we advocate and we get aggressive. And when we need to, sometimes we ask for the leaders to get involved and advocate aggressively. But typically, lately, in the last year, we've been able to return members to work after they finish the program within 1 to 3 days. So the process has gotten much better. Listen, this is really all about using tools. And so the tools that we use when we put a member on leave is, we use the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we use the Family Medical Leave Act. Those are our two big tools. And why do we use the ADA? Because sometimes members have exhausted all their FMLA time, or if they're a new member and haven't been on the job for a year, they don't have FMLA. So what do we do in that instance? Then we invoke the rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's a provision under the Americans with Disabilities Act that's called the interactive process. And what that says is really simply that as an employee, you're allowed to ask for an accommodation from the employer. Okay, they have to extend you that courtesy. So what we do is when FMLA time is exhausted, we ask for additional time under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And 99% of the time, the employer gives us the additional time so that we can have that member take their time on leave and get healthy. This is all about getting members healthy so that they can return to their job and function and be there for their families. That's what our program is all about. And we take a lot of pride in doing this. And so, my name is Jeffrey Meyer. That's our program, Union First. I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you may have.
So this isn't just about drugs and alcohol, right? I mean, if somebody is like feeling pretty severely depressed,
Yeah.
they can give that, because we've had some suicides, honestly, we've had them over the railroad the last couple of years, have known some people. So they could call you, get that assessment, and you guys will be able to tell that person whether it's outpatient, inpatient, or just therapy.
Yeah, so we have a mental health program. We have a pretty strong mental health program that addresses anxiety, depression, PTSD, trauma, bipolar. We have all that, schizophrenia. We have all that covered. So we have programs in place for that that work really well. And we've had some recent members go through those programs successfully. So that's a great question. Any other questions? Jordan.
Hey Jeff, is this just for us or is it for our families too?
It's for your immediate family members as well. So like we get calls sometimes, hey, I've got a 16-year-old daughter, she's going through some things in high school, can you help us with a therapist? And we've been able to set up a therapy appointment for them. So we have a national partnership with an organization called Good Therapy. So if you want to right now, you can go on our website under our services section for telehealth, and there's a button on there that says identify a therapist, and all you have to do is put in your zip code, and it will tell you all the therapists in your area that accept your insurance. We've already had it pre-screened. It will tell you who takes your insurance, who's in network with you, and all you have to do is put in your zip code. It'll give you a list of therapists, and then it will expedite an appointment for you with a therapist for you or your family member. Great question. Yes?
Does that overlap with any, like if they're already getting help? I know of a couple members that are military that have PTSD through the VA. Is that something that you?
So our stuff would be supplemental. Our stuff would be in addition to whatever they're currently getting. Yep.
So in the case where you run out of your FMLA, similar to what that gentleman asked about the PTSD,
Yeah.
you can implement the ADA.
So we do a notice to the employer invoking your rights under the ADA, and we make a specific request for the accommodation.
So that member can get VA appointments and so on and so forth.
So if you came to us and said, hey, could you do that for us, we would do the notice for you, absolutely. If you wanted to do VA, yep. We would do the notice. Yes.
those appointments.
Yep.
You know, where there's disability or VA stuff.
We can be helpful, that's correct.
And
Yes.
through the ADA, you guys are saying that because of that provision that's in there, the company has no recourse to
So the company,
really aggressively go after you.
right, because you're protected.
Yeah, you get protection.
That's correct, that's right. And so typically when we invoke the ADA, the company's hands off. Yep, I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, it's perfect timing you showing up today. I was actually on the phone with a member yesterday, about something this line, and, I just think it'd be good to bring up to everybody, because one of his questions was, you know, I got this issue, I need to do something about it. Is this gonna hurt me as far as my employer? If I go see a therapist and everything, is this something that's gonna come back and bite me in the ass from the carrier?
So first of all, if a member goes and sees a therapist, that's private and that's protected by HIPAA, so the employer will never know about that, whether you go through our program or through independently identify a therapist. When we put a member on leave, the railroad knows that they're on medical.
Yeah, I was just strictly talking the therapy.
Yeah, no, they're not gonna have any idea, the employer, that they're seeing a therapist. Yeah. Because the insurance provider is not gonna provide that information as well. Yeah. Well, listen, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so just real quick on that, who here thinks that if you go through your Union EAP is private? The company, the company EAP thinks it's private.
Not at all.
Not at all. It is private here. Jeffrey will tell us kind of what's going on, but he won't give us any details. He'll say Russ is off work, off on medical. He won't tell us what's going on with him or anything, even for us, just to get stuff off, get stuff fixed for him if we need to. But that's why I say the question come up with Nate there. If you go to the company EAP, the company's going to know, they're going to have all your doctor's notes and everything. They're going to know why you're off work, and they could possibly use that. They say they don't, but obviously you know how that works. If you go through an outside source like this, it is confidential strictly. They know you're off, but they don't know what's going on with you. All right, that's all I had for that.
Well, honestly, George, last year when that gentleman from TPO7 committed suicide,
Yeah.
they sent out 2 company representatives for mental health, and nobody would talk to them because they were exactly the same way.
Yep.
They wouldn't say SMOO to them because they were afraid. Okay, I've got this mental thing now. They're going to flag me, and then I'm going to be on some list.
If they said one thing wrong, they'd pull them from service
Exactly.
because they said it wasn't safe to work, and they wouldn't be getting paid or anything.
And we were all in the job briefing, and they were just like, yeah, we got counselors here if you need them, and nobody was like, yeah, that ain't happening. It just ain't gonna happen. Nobody wanted to flag themselves like that.
So let's take a quick break. Trooper Lewis should be here. I want to see if I can find him. 8:30, sharp. Okay.